What we have is truly international organized crime. They were able to get work authorizations, and with the work authorization, they could go open their own trucking company, quote unquote, and then they could just run. And we have hundreds of thousands.
You're saying the illegals themselves are opening their own companies.
Oh my goodness, yeah. At one time, California had said that they don't even know how many non-domiciled CDLs they had issued. It did come out once the FMCSA did the audit that there were 62,000 that were issued. Not only do we have illegal immigrants transporting Department of Defense, Department of War freight, we have their electronic logging devices, which is the application on a phone or a tablet, and then a piece of hardware that plugs into the truck. A lot of these trucking companies that are supposedly putting Department of Defense freight or on their trucks, they also own a freight brokerage. But that freight brokerage isn't approved by the Department of War. They had bribed the DMV workers with like pallets of Swedish fish and bottled water.
Like the candy, Swedish fish?
Mm-hmm. There's a program called Amazon Relay, and that's the trailers and crazy trucks that you see on the road. Amazon Relay is an app. The drivers have to log on to the app, sign in with their company information. In the last few months, year, they have increased the barrier to entry, but when it first started, there was no barrier to entry. Anyone could do it. Amazon did have a metric of unsafe or incompliant behavior, and they would reach that metric and then Amazon would kick them off. Well, they would just sign up under a new one.
They know nothing about cause and effect.
We have a gentleman who was running our elections who literally came from a dictatorial South American communist country.
Stealing, trafficking, we've got to put a stop to it. Danielle, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. And I had started this conversation with somebody else. I know you saw that interview. I was talking to a former senior instructor in the CDL licensing industry in Texas, and she was just telling me all kinds of crazy stuff that she was seeing in 2021. And then we saw where the U.S. government, a couple weeks after that podcast, had done a big audit. I like to take credit for that, but that's likely not anything to do with me. But a big audit had been done on the CDL, whatever you call it, the CDL market. And they had ended up pulling 6,000 CDLs in Texas. But I ran across your page and saw that you're somewhat of a subject matter expert on this stuff. And you've really been digging into this for a while. So I want to talk to you and find out what you know. So tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah. My name is Danielle Chaffin. I am third generation in the trucking industry. So I deeply care about the industry. If it wasn't for trucking, I wouldn't be here. I do have a full-time job. I work for a technology company in the logistics space that's for trucking companies, freight brokers, and shippers. So that's what I do 9 to 5 every day. And then in all of my spare time that I'm not spending with my 2 children, I am digging in and, I was trying to figure out what was going on in the trucking industry. Since I started digging in around this time last year, now I've just been exposing what's really going on in trucking.
Yeah, and what you're exposing is some pretty big stuff. Like, if I go to your timeline any given day of the week at any time, I'm finding something new that I'm like, this is insane. How is this
every day?
Yeah. How is this our reality?
Yeah.
Tell us.
I started posting on this back in March of last year. Started digging into it really around the beginning of last year, but figuring out even what to post and what was real versus what wasn't real, because I always try to prove myself wrong when I find something. I want to prove myself wrong because a lot of it is that bad. And when I started posting in March, I have not posted like a duplicate story. Sometimes I'll bring something back like from the archives of last year because all of it's still relevant. But I started out with downloading the file from the FMCSA and the DOT. So the Department of Transportation, and then there's an agency under the DOT. It's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. They are over all of the highway, the trucking companies, the freight brokerages. There's a company census file that's 2.1 million rows. And so I downloaded that and I just organized it by column and started doom scrolling, really. And I did that for probably a month. And I was amazed at what a mess that is. So that's where it started, really finding the clusters of addresses and then the naming of some of these people that have registered trucking companies. That's where I started, and then it just snowballed from there. That I've had to dig back into what really happened in the trucking industry. How did we get here? And really it points back to the Obama administration and
it goes that far back.
Really the open borders and just creating this flood of trucking. And trucking is a safe space for illegal immigrants. They were able to get work authorizations, and with the work authorization, they could go open their own trucking company, quote unquote, and then they could just run. And we have hundreds of thousands.
You're saying the illegals themselves are opening their own companies?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Backing up to the Obama stuff, and I'm just curious because I'm a military guy, and so my flashpoint, I usually go back to 2011, 2012, as far as when we saw the big shift in the military and the senior hierarchy and all that stuff. So what was your timeline that you started kind of seeing?
My timeline, so the trucking industry really took a turn around 2018.
Okay.
That's when we saw it's a surge of new trucking companies and the number of CDLs we were handing out. It was like 400,000 new CDLs and hundreds of thousands of new trucking companies.
So what's the norm? What would have been the norm versus what you saw?
It's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
I do know, like Ohio, for instance, 2014 to 2018, I think it was over 100% new trucking companies, the increase in trucking companies, which is insane.
And one of the things I saw with the Texas, I can't remember the name of the department, but basically Texas Transportation was what was alleged and what was fairly well verified in subsequent conversations was that that DPS, Department of Public Safety here in Texas, was overseeing a lot of these illegal immigrants that were coming in early 2021 and were flooding the licensing industry for CDLs. I mean, actual agents in DPS that were overseeing the process.
Yep.
So what have you seen, maybe not just Texas, but nationally in that regard?
Yeah, so this will all fall under the non-domiciled CDLs. And so years and years ago, we did not have a rule for where you lived versus where you got your CDL. And so there were a few nefarious things going on in the cowboy world of trucking. And so if I lived in Tennessee, but I messed up in Tennessee, let's say I'm a truck driver, I got a DUI in Tennessee, I would lose my CDL in Tennessee, but I could go get one in Ohio and have that one. And so I could have multiple CDLs. And so, yes, that was a problem. We need to fix it. So when we fixed it, we created the non-domiciled CDL. And so one person, one CDL. That was the goal. When that non-domiciled CDL was created and codified, the word foreign is used, as in the domicile of the state. So if I live in Tennessee, Ohio is a foreign state to me because I don't live there.
Okay.
But so I live in Tennessee, that's where I need to get my CDL. And we also opened it up where if I live in Tennessee, but Ohio, I get hired by a trucking company in Ohio. They have a truck driving school. They want me to come there, do everything, get my CDL. Ohio would issue me a non-domiciled CDL. So when I come back to Tennessee, I have 30 days to update it and get my Tennessee CDL. I don't have to retake the test. I don't have to go through the whole process again. I just take them that non-domiciled from Ohio. That non-domicile, it was never meant for immigrants. The foreign concept there was for people that did not live in the state where they're getting their CDL. But because we leave loopholes in almost everything we do, that loophole was exploited when we had the surge of immigrants and the open borders. And so then that foreign domicile became anywhere on the planet that you could come in and get a non-domiciled CDL. And so with the trucking non-domiciled CDLs, they do not have to be like H-1Bs or H-2As or any of the, we know how many of these we have given out because the employer has to apply for them. Truck drivers come in and they will get work authorization documents or an EAD card. They can get that before they even apply for the asylum case.
Okay.
And so, yeah, go ahead.
No, keep going. Sorry.
The EAD card, then they can take that to the DMV or CDL school. They get their CDL. The expiration date on the CDL is supposed to be the same as the expiration date on that EAD card or any type of visa they have. And what happened with the audits that came out from the FMCSA is that they found multiple, which I did play a part in because I was posting them like crazy on X after I found a vibe coded app online and they left the whole back end open. There were hundreds of CDLs in there.
Nice.
And
good work.
Yeah. So I found a bunch of them, and New York prints the visa expiration or the EAD card expiration on the CDL. And so you can quickly look and see CDL expiration, EAD card expiration, or visa expiration. And they were anywhere from 2 to 5, 6 years difference there. And so they're running the roads with, they do not have a legal presence or authorized presence in the United States anymore, but that CDL is active and it's good. But the only way that someone could tell that quickly is the ones from New York because the expiration date is there. No other state does that I've seen.
So New York is leading the way on doing it right, I guess. Ish.
Yeah.
That's
right-ish.
startling.
Yeah.
And I, so obviously the problem is we have mass illegal immigration and cover in the trucking industry. And you're saying that a lot of these guys aren't even here legally, but they are driving the roads on current CDLs, even though their visa is expired.
Correct.
And my question is if I go back to that what I know about DPS running oversight of that business here in Texas, what does that look like across the rest of the nation? Who is auditing this stuff and who is verifying that these people have a right to work here in the United States along with their CDL?
No one.
No one.
I mean, there are some states that don't issue non-domiciled CDLs. Tennessee is one of them. They don't issue non-domiciled CDLs. And so a normal CDL, the duration on that is 5 to 8 years, unless you have a medical exemption, it could be shorter. But that's what they were doing. They were just issuing a CDL per usual, not following the guidance of the visa date.
Holy smokes.
Mm-hmm.
What is
the
federal oversight on this? Is there any?
It's to the states. Like the states issue the CDLs.
But this is interstate traffic.
It is.
So if these vehicles are going out of the state and they're trafficking all over the country, they should have federal oversight. And I'm not a big federal oversight guy. I'll be the last person who's championing federal oversight. But listen, if we have folks that are trafficking, like, trucking is the backbone of this nation. I'll say what I said in the other show, and anybody who works in the trucking industry knows this. We don't exist without the trucking industry. We don't eat. We don't do anything without trucking. And if they're trafficking from California to Maine without federal oversight, because that little pocket of the nation that they left no longer has control or oversight of their CDL, then it's a free-for-all and just no man's land.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy smokes.
At one time, California had said that they don't even know how many non-domiciled CDLs they had issued. It did come out once the FMCSA did the audit that there were 62,000 that were issued.
So they're not even doing oversight of their own issuance of this stuff, let alone who is coming from other states in. And okay, let me just explore the rabbit trail here with you. I don't know how crazy you get in the weeds on this stuff, and I get it.
I get
you
pretty
like to
crazy.
be factual. You like to question yourself and make sure you try to prove yourself wrong before you put it out. So this is completely hypothetical. This is just
I do like
analytical
hypotheticals,
thinking.
though.
Okay, cool. What is your opinion on potential national security risks as far as materials being trafficked?
Huge. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this. And when I started it, the national security and national public safety is what I've been so adamant on. The national security, even down to the electronics in the truck, that is a ginormous issue in itself. And so not only do we have illegal immigrants transporting Department of Defense, Department of War freight, we have their electronic logging devices, which is the application on a phone or a tablet, and then a piece of hardware that plugs into the truck. And it's recording all of the routes. It's recording the cargo that's being hauled. It's recording messages to and from dispatch and the driver. And if that driver takes a picture of the documents, like the bill of lading that has all of the specifics on the cargo, or he takes pictures of that cargo, all of that's fed through the ELD app. We have hundreds, probably close to 1,000 ELDs that are based overseas.
Wow. Where?
And the entire operation runs from overseas. Moldova, Serbia, Uzbekistan, India. Those are the top 4 big ones.
Interesting.
Ukraine.
Yeah. What about CCP fingers involved in this? Have you found any?
Yeah, there's a lot. My friend Rob Carpenter has put out a couple of articles on the interference there. And with the ELDs, there's like online classes that teach you how to break into or hack, I should say, hack the ELDs and even hack like the computers in the truck to just stop them.
I don't want to leave any dead space here, so I'm going to talk, but I'm trying to think.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Truly a lot.
Let's go back to that DOD thing you said. Okay, so Department of Defense freight. They come out of their installation. They're headed to whatever training center they're going to, JRTC, NTC, wherever. Or just going to another installation. You know, a lot of the components inside some of those vehicles, not your standard, not your Humvees, not your LMTVs, stuff like that, but tanks and stuff like that. We don't want to give people the ability to just move our equipment and our stuff. Now I got it. They're not moving a tank on a truck, but at the same time, if there's that little oversight in the kind of freight that is happening in the trucking industry, it makes me question the freight everywhere else on rail or anything. I don't know how far this goes. There's no oversight in this critical aspect of moving stuff across our nation. And I can't for a second think that this is just in the trucking industry. Now, I'm not asking you to weigh in on this, but I am actually. Do you have any insight on freight as far as the rail industry?
I haven't. I don't know as much about the rail freight or ocean, but I know it. I mean, to get freight to rail or to get it to the port, it first touches a truck.
Fair enough.
So it's all it all goes together. It all overlaps. The ocean piece is much more of a national security issue. That's where a lot of the stolen freight goes to. That's where we see the cars getting exported that have been stolen. Yeah, but first it has to touch a truck to get to the port.
Okay.
And so it's just, what we have is truly international organized crime. And it's not just one group. And people right now, everyone's focusing on the Somalis. A few months ago, everyone was focusing on all of the like Punjabi Indian Sikh truckers. And so we just like go through these phases of the newest story or the latest story, but it's so much bigger than just those two groups.
Yeah. And that's something I was talking about with a different subject, but I look at this administration. If I look back to 2016, okay, Trump's, I'm going to drain the swamp. Okay, drain the swamp. And then he got in there and he didn't really know what he was doing as far as what goes on in the Beltway, just how deep everything goes within the deep state. It touches everything. It's embedded throughout every institution, everywhere. And so kind of based on the lawfare, based on the blockading in Congress and everything else, the first administration was just stopped in its tracks. He got some stuff done, but he's back. He knows the Beltway this time. He knows what he's up against, makes the same promises to drain the swamp. And at this point, and this is just my vantage point from a guy who's been struggling to get accountability within the military, I see this administration as a whole coming to terms with the overwhelming reality that there is so much systemic corruption, fraud, name it, that they're kind of lost. And it's like, where do we start? And everybody's screaming at the Department of Justice, do something, Pam Bondi, do something. And I'm like, at what point do you just go, this is a wash, man? Like, we're gone. It's insane.
I only deal with the trucking industry, and I cannot imagine Sean Duffy walking into the mess that he walked into. He has done more for the trucking industry than any Secretary of Transportation that we've had in decades. But it's a mess. I mean, at times I'm like, I don't even know what I would do right now, because
I don't either. I can't even armchair quarterback this.
Yeah. Like, just besides just cutting it off, the Department of Defense, the Department of War Freight, everything is like its own little beast in each section. But I've been auditing the carriers that are approved, or trucking companies that are approved for Department of Defense. And there's so much corruption in that. Many of the trucking companies that are authorized to haul Department of Defense freight, they also own a freight brokerage, which is the person that arranges the transportation. They get freight from a shipper, and then they go hire a truck to haul the freight.
Oh, I see what you're saying here.
So a lot of these trucking companies that are supposedly putting Department of Defense freight war on their trucks, they also own a freight brokerage. But that freight brokerage isn't approved by the Department of War. And so you go and look, and it's like this one company that has one truck was awarded 16 loads in 2 days to go, 500 miles. And so with one truck, they're supposed to go back and forth 32 times in 2 days. And what's happening is that they have a freight brokerage, and they're just bidding out the freight to whoever they want to.
Holy
One guy
smokes.
I found owns a trucking company. He lives in Nigeria.
Of course he does. Why
And
not?
it's like, if I don't laugh at some of this stuff because it's so insane, I would choose violence.
I get it. We're all there. It's like, you either cry or you laugh. Pick one.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it with, you said, the Somalians and stuff like that. You see those folks in politics. They hold parliamentary seats over in Somalia, or whatever the name of their house of politics is. But they own Leering centers here in Minnesota. And it's like, so, all right. Let me jump to a different topic here. You had posted yesterday, or a couple days ago, about a guy who's in jail. He's in jail for fraud.
Mr. Sayudin. So Dimitru Sayudin, he goes by Dave. So Dave Sayudin is from Moldova. There's a huge network of Moldovans in trucking. I've yet to find one that's like doing the right thing. Sayudin was being sued a freight brokerage for saying that they did all this crazy stuff to him. They did not. And so Dave is in this lawsuit. He shows up to the deposition and ICE was there to arrest him. So he was arrested. He has been in Butler County, Ohio jail since back in November. And then I just kept an eye on it to see, knowing the operation, the trucking company is not going to be shut down because it's really ran from Moldova. I've just been keeping an eye to see, will they keep running? Like the week after, you're still operating. It's okay. You've got to get trucks back home. People have to go find another job. I'm not going to worry about that. And then I checked it a few days ago and they're running as if nothing ever happened. And I post it as if I kind of don't know what's going on. I know that the operation is running from Moldova. I know that Dave was just the owner of this company, so they could split out the assets a little bit and not make it under one. But he has, since he's been arrested and been in Butler County Jail, he has updated his business filing or registration. And there's a document that you have to update. It's the form MCS 150. You have to update it every 2 years with the FMCSA. And then if you have any other changes like truck count, mileage, number of drivers, address, whatever, you have to update the FMCSA through that MCS 150 form. He updated that at the end of December from jail.
Wow.
And so just making sure, confirming that he did not have access to the internet from jail, we called to make sure, and they do not have access.
So we have just figureheads running these corporations. We have we can't even hold an individual accountable because there are so many foreign entities that are running everything on the back end. And basically what I'm getting from this is Dave is just sitting there collecting a paycheck, making sure there's a face to go with the name of the company. But all of this stuff runs on the back end. It's insane. Okay.
And we just let it happen.
Exactly. And not only do we let it happen, but we have evidence that we have elements of our government that have facilitated this. Maybe not now, but they have in the past. And we have gotten to the point where entire infrastructure is built up around some sort of state-sponsored oversight of this illegal immigration, of this foreign-owned industry that, once again, trucking is the backbone of our nation. Americans, you do not eat, you do not have fuel, you do not have, pick an item that you spend money on and you do not have it if something happens in our trucking industry. And the fact that we have no oversight, that we could be moving all sorts of stuff. And if you look at, a lot of the top analysts out there that are talking, I've mentioned a few of these items myself, but the amount of threats that came over the border, from ISIS to Al Qaeda to the CCP to Venezuelan Tren de Aragua, to so many elements that have nefarious intent and purpose, and their sole being here in the United States is to do something destructive to our nation. And the fact that we have no oversight in our trucking industry, a lot of these people are employed by our trucking industry. And I liken that back to the first podcast I did, where you had a 20-year plus instructor in the CDL industry who gave a firsthand eyewitness testimony to what she had witnessed and the things that were said to her as far as human trafficking and the threats that were made against her, the owner of the company, and everything else. I'll stop ranting, but it is truly alarming. Let me get into some things really quick. So talk to me about bribery for licenses and contracts.
Yeah, we've had a lot of that. My favorite one, I forget which state it was from. Dang, maybe Wisconsin. The the briber, I forget the names, but there was a sheriff in on it, and they had bribed the DMV workers with like pallets of Swedish fish and bottled water.
Like the candy, Swedish fish?
Hmm. For
Really?
CDLs. And so they would, before the Swedish fish and water, they would send the CDL, the truck driver, to get a CDL with an envelope. And inside the envelope, it had his name on it and then like a wad of cash. It wasn't a lot, like $200 or something.
Some of these people aren't even making bank on this. They're getting
No.
bought with gummy bears.
Yeah.
Like gummy
Yeah.
bears, pallets of water, and a couple $100. Okay.
Yeah. And that's one example. There's been multiple
Sure.
bribery where it's a CDL school owner, someone at the DMV, and then they're not even taking the test. They're just getting the CDL and then they're out on the roads.
Well, I mean, once again, going back to that interview, one of the things that she had brought up was the fact that the owner had been getting threats from some of these Afghan
Mm-hmm.
these Afghan ANA Army National Afghanistan National Army folks who had come over here, and they were making kind of passive threats, and then some of them were making direct threats, and they were scared of these guys and they didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so once again, she had to reach out to the FBI, and then the FBI was like, yeah, we want you to go in and do a sting. We can't provide you any protection, but we want you to get all this documented. And you're like, are you out of your freaking mind?
Yeah.
This 5'4", 130-pound woman is going to go in there without any protection to get you evidence of what's going on. And the FBI says, we're not going to provide you any protection. All right. I'll try not to cuss here, but that's insane to me. That's
insane.
That's what we're dealing with, though. So, okay, you're talking about the freight and the broker fraud, but what I'm reading here from Grok is this includes falsified documents, identity theft, and impersonation of legitimate carriers, brokers, or shippers to steal cargo or payments.
Yeah.
Estimates suggest annual losses of 500 to 800 million.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound on that?
Yeah, I can. And this is one of the things that is the Somalis and the daycares have blown up because it directly relates to taxpayer money. It's very hard to make that concept similar to trucking because it's not government grants. Some of the CDL schools run from government grants, but it's not a substantial amount. It's $5,000 per student. So it's very hard to quantify the mass fraud in trucking. But when we look at numbers from cargo theft, when we look at numbers of insurance claims where a nefarious actor, a criminal, has pretended to be a real trucking company and they get the load, they pick it up, then it goes on a container and it's shipped overseas, or they pick it up, they take a few pallets off, those pallets are shipped overseas. That's easier to quantify, but still there's a lot of people like in the general audience that don't understand how bad that is or how it impacts them financially because maybe it doesn't. But the cargo theft, it used to be historically, it was very simple cargo theft. You would target a truck, you would take stuff out of it. That's it. The cargo theft and
style.
Yeah. Because we have so many of these criminal organizations overseas, and because of the technology, they know where the truck is, where the freight is at all times. They know who's driving it. They know how to hack into the emails of either freight brokers, shippers, carriers, and pretend to be that person. And that's where they will reroute the shipments and they will send someone in to pick it up.
Wow.
Yeah. And if they're pretending to be a shipper or a freight broker, they will get the load and then they will hire like an innocent truck driver to go pick it up. He picks it up, and then as soon as he picks it up, they'll call him or send him an email and say, hey, we actually need you to take it to this warehouse. And some of them will do it. There have been many cases where the truck driver's like, I don't even know where that is. I'm not going to do that. And they will get in touch with the police. But this is happening every single day.
That's incredible. I'm amazed at the sophistication of this operation.
Yeah.
Um, you don't even know on the surface that anything is happening because everything has been done legitimately by digital means, digital
Yes.
intrusion, and you're the driver on this end, you're the driver on that end, and you're like everything's on the up and up. And like you said, unless that driver's spidey sense goes up and he's
Hmm.
like, yeah, I don't know this place. It doesn't feel right,
Yeah.
then nobody's the wiser. The stuff moves, and the only people who are affected are the company who sent the stuff and the company who was supposed to receive the stuff in the first place. And at some point, they're probably a large organization. So at some point, they do an audit, and I
That's
would
right.
guess if it's like Walmart or something, they just mark it off as a loss, and
That's it.
nobody even knows about it.
Yeah. So if it's not like an entire trailer or truckload stolen, if it's not, like I said, the entire thing stolen, it will be 1 or 2 pallets. And I think that is what we have going on now that's much more common than the entire truckload,
Okay.
is that they will route the truck. And it could be the innocent truck driver. More often than not in this one, it is the like criminal truck driver.
Okay.
But they'll go pick up the load, and then there was one on the East Coast. They were using storage units, like the rental storage units. And so they would pick up the load, go to the storage unit, they would unload 2 or 3 pallets, and then they would go deliver. And huge corporations, you're right, they just mark it off as, oh, that one was 2 pallets short, and they move on. But then when they do an audit, they realize we have hundreds of pallets that are now missing. But those are overseas
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah,
sold
they're
on
gone.
Facebook Marketplace by
Right.
now.
So that let's explore that for a minute. That criminal truck driver, he gets directed by state troopers into a trucking station, into a, forgive me,
Way
way
station.
station. Thank
Mhm.
you, way
The old
station.
truck drivers call it
Yes,
chicken houses.
chicken houses. All right,
Mhm.
I like that. He gets directed into a chicken house, and is there anything on the miss, or does everything look right on the surface?
Oh,
Paperwork,
everything will look right on the surface.
everything is good to go, and they would
Mhm.
never know. So
Yep.
he has nothing to even worry about.
Mm-mm.
He might know he's doing something wrong, but everything checks out. CDL, paperwork, load weight, all of it is good to
Yep.
go.
Yep.
Wow. Um, okay. So I'm looking at this next one here, and this is actually interesting because what brought this to a lot of people's attention, that we have this massive issue with illegal immigrants in the industry, is some of these insane videos that we
Mhm.
saw of uh Punjab driving along, just blow,
Mhm.
just blowing cars up, murdering people for whatever reason. Like, okay, you don't have to speak the language to know that traffic is stopping. Stop with it. But at the same time, we found out that people don't know how to read. They don't know how to speak English. They don't know what the signs mean. How
Mhm.
did they get their CDL in the first place? How did they pass these tests? So a lot of questions were asked, and then we went into the Minnesota stuff, and people kind of stopped talking about it a little
Yeah.
bit. But as far as staged accidents and insurance scams, what do you know about that?
I know that the staged accidents, I think, typically come more from passenger vehicles where they will stop and like back into a truck.
Gotcha.
The wrecks that we're seeing with the semi trucks is literally just incompetence and unskilled drivers. And what happens is each ring of immigrants, the ones that are coming in from Turkey, the Indians, they all have their own CDL schools. They all have their own like inside insurance agent. Then they have the companies, and all of them set the companies up a little bit differently. On the Indians, the Sikh population specifically, they will come in, and it seems as if every single young man that they bring in will set up their own trucking company. But they do that so they can have the authority, the numbers, and the company name to put on the side of the truck, because
Mm.
they will run through it within a year and have to switch. Insurance will cancel on them, or the FMCSA will shut them down because they are clearly unsafe.
And they can just pop up in another name, no problem.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Happens every single day.
Uh, just side note, but that's something that I've seen a lot of in the construction business as well, with people doing shoddy work, um, laying shoddy foundations, whatever the case is. And when they get sued, they just declare bankruptcy, dissolve the LLC, and then pop up in another LLC
Yep.
and continue on. And the person, oftentimes just a small guy like me who was just trying to have something done to the side of their house, a building put up or something, is screwed because
Yep.
they'll never get paid for it. And so you're same thing, no
Mhm.
accountability. These people are not held, they're not put in jail, they're not held to any kind of account, they're not stopped in any way. They just effortlessly pop back up under another business name and continue on.
Yep. And there was one also Moldovan network. There was a wreck in Terrell, Texas, not too long ago. And the driver fell asleep. He was Cuban. I still don't know if he was illegal or not. They haven't put an ICE detainer on him in Texas, so maybe he's not illegal. But he was living in Florida, had a Florida CDL. He fell asleep on the highway and just barreled into vehicles. One of the vehicles had a mom, a dad, the brother, 20-year-old sister, and the grandpa, and it killed all of them except the 20-year-old daughter, sister, granddaughter. So she lost her entire family in this one wreck. And that one, because of the way that they were operating, two things here. One on the running through entities, and the other one is on that electronic logging device. That trip was actually for the United States Postal Service. They require 2 drivers on any trip over 500 miles. But the way that they can manipulate those electronic logging devices is it looks like there are 2 drivers. And so Alexis had been running for who knows how long and fell asleep.
Wow.
But prior to them being Hope Trans out of Washington, which then they moved it to Ohio before it was shut down, Hope Trans was B-Zone Logistics, also had fatal accidents. Before B-Zone Logistics, they were Cardan Trucking, also had fatal accidents. And before Cardan Trucking, they were Fioriti Trucking, which those records, I couldn't find the fatal accidents because they were so old. But throughout this time, they just moved the entire fleet under a new USDOT authority and company name. But it was the same thing the entire time.
You said something there. You said Alexa, and I know that's not what you were talking about, but Alexa triggered Amazon in my head, and therefore I got a question on the post I put up the other day, and the guy said, "May I request you ask about the Amazon tie-in? Whenever I'm on the interstate, I see Amazon trucks driving in unsafe manners. When they pull over at truck stops, I see Sikh drivers." You were talking about the Sikhs. I'm assuming Amazon is subcontracting.
They are. And the way that they've set it up is brilliant. They are not held liable for anything that these drivers do. Amazon, there's a program called Amazon Relay, and that's the trailers and crazy trucks that you see on the road. Amazon Relay is an app. The drivers have to log on to the app, sign in with their company information. In the last few months, year, they have increased the barrier to entry. But when it first started, there was no barrier to entry. Anyone could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even worse for what we call chameleon carriers, the ones that just switch from company to company because they're shut down. And so Amazon did have a metric of unsafe or incompliant behavior, and they would reach that metric and then Amazon would kick them off. Well, they would just sign up under a new one. And they sell these things on Facebook. There's Facebook groups for selling DOT numbers. So then they just buy a new one for a few $1,000s and then sign up for Amazon again.
Is it easier or harder to buy a social security number as an illegal immigrant or a DOT number? Just your opinion.
I don't know. Probably right. Social security number.
But anything is for sale. These folks are just jacking everything, and it's all fake. And you said that, and that was my next question. I was going to ask you about chameleon carriers and regulatory evasion. But you described it. Companies shut down for violations, reopen under new names. This right here says this is exacerbated by fraud in programs like the PPP loans, where inactive or fraudulent firms receive funds. Can you speak to that at all, or?
Yeah, I have found a few of them. The thing with trucking is if you were the way that most of these are set up, it is a 1 truck, 2 truck operation. And so if they filed for the PPP under general freight or transportation trucking, the most they got was like $20,000. So all of those kind of flew under the radar. There have been cases where there's a lot more. Some of them that I found are actually the industry on the PPP loan is so far from trucking that it's hilarious. Like it's under the trucking company name. It'll be ABC Trucking Company, but then the industry is like food service. And so they got a lot more. But the PPP loans, a few cases here and there that were just outrageous, but most of them were like $20,000 here and there.
Gotcha. And you had talked about the exploitation of drivers and safety disregard, and we heard about that incident with the guy who fell asleep behind the wheel. One of the things that I'm looking at is it says deregulation has amplified this. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot that goes into that. And actually, my friend Gord McGill just wrote a book, and it's coming out this spring. His book goes into it much more. I think he's also 3rd generation in trucking, but he is actual truck driver. I'm not an actual truck driver. No one needs me to be a truck driver, honestly, the way my brain is designed and works. But I'm like, I see danger and I just freak out. So I would like slam on the gas instead of like calmly. I'm a woman, so I understand the difference.
I like it.
Yeah. And so I operate my computer very well, not a truck. But Gord has written a book, and that is going to go into deregulation and how it changed the industry, and much more so on the previous administrations. I think deregulation, in a sense, was very good for the industry, but it opened it up to everything that was to come.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Side note, but I'm going to reach out to you when that book comes out and see if you'd be interested in coming on the show, because
oh my gosh, he would say yes.
Excellent. That'd be very cool. This last one I'm looking at is something we've been talking about the entire show, but it's immigration and ethnic specific fraud networks. So basically saying, including illegal CDL issuance, e.g. 54% in North Carolina reviewed were improper. Are we seeing what? Not that are we seeing, we are seeing, but what have you seen specifically in very ethnic specific fraud rings? I imagine that these aren't pouring out into different demographics. We're keeping the Sikhs with the Sikhs. We're keeping the Afghans with the Afghans, that type of thing. What are you seeing in that regard?
Absolutely. I want to touch on the 54% from North Carolina. That sounds awful. North Carolina had only issued 952 non-domiciled CDLs.
Okay. Context. Good.
Yeah. So while they were like above New York, above California's percentage, California's issued 62,000. And yeah, so I was in the comments on a lot of this post, which almost 500 of them still a problem, not as much of a problem in New York, Pennsylvania, California.
Of course.
These certain groups, they operate differently. Like the Somalis and the Sikhs, when it comes to the data and like figuring out what they're doing, it's not hard. Like the Sikhs, there's an apartment complex in California that they bring all the guys into, and there have been 125 plus US DOTs registered to this apartment complex. Yeah. Which, why we don't flag that at the FMCSA, I do not know.
Who is sitting behind the desk? Somebody do something.
Yeah. And I'm like, guys, just give me the keys for 2 weeks.
No kidding.
I can clean this up. But what they do and how they do it with the data, it's very simple and basic to figure out. The Moldovans, the Russians, the Ukrainians, Uzbekistan, they're much smarter with what they do. It can be figured out, but there's still an element of like, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I know that it's fraud, what they're doing, but I just don't know what they're doing exactly. And that is the part with those groups that does scare me. Ohio has a huge population of Ukrainian, Uzbekistan, and Moldovan trucking companies. They're building a huge mosque that is like sponsored by one of the biggest trucking companies out of Ohio. And that's the one that scares me.
And rightfully so. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but if anybody needs a history lesson on how Russia feels about the Uzbeks and that whole dynamic between them, and yeah, there's been some bad conduct on the part of the Russians, but they got tired of the terrorism and everything else that they were experiencing. So it's you're right to be concerned about that. That's an issue. Okay, so a lot of questions people come at me with are, okay, so now we know about it. What do we do about it? And this is what I say to people. Okay, yeah, you know about it. You know about it because you just read a post about it and you just saw a video about it on social media. But all 330 or whatever the population of America is, but all 330 million Americans don't know about this, okay?
Yeah.
You have a lot of folks who aren't on social media. A lot of media doesn't cover this stuff. A lot of information is fragmented and it takes a long time to dilute into the lexicon of the average American. So we are still in what I consider the education phase. And I tell people this all the time. To fix a problem, you have to know what the problem is and identify it. You have to identify the problem first. And we are in the process of identifying this problem to the American people. And this will take a long time because, yes, while the information is flooding out, getting it to all of the corners of where people digest information is going to take a long time. That's just how it works. I still have people coming to me a year later going, oh, hey, I saw you on the Sean Ryan show. And I'm like, please don't talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. But at the same time, like they didn't know about it because it had nothing to do with them and they weren't following it. And they just happened to run across a clip. And these are people that I know in my own life. So think about all the people out there that are not following this stuff. So I'm getting somewhere with this. My question is, all right, we keep doing the education phase and we keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the investigative work. You're putting this information out. Then what? How do we fix this? Do you have any solutions for how to fix this specific problem?
So, number one, we have to get rid of the non-domiciled CDLs because the loophole has been exploited as greatly as it has. We have to get rid of them. And I know that that's going to cut off hundreds of thousands of truck drivers. I understand, but we cannot continue going after one truck driver at a time. It'll be 24 years before we ever get anything done if we do it that way. So the non-domiciled CDLs is the first issue that we have to put an end to. Sean Duffy is working on that. It is, of course, a state-by-state a decision and some of the choices that they can make. A lot of people talk about federalizing the CDLs. I don't know that that will ever happen. The FMCSA and the DOT already have so much that they can't even get to. I don't know how they would take on a nation of truck drivers and their licensing. Number two is it would be the FMCSA and their database. I had another number two, but I lost it.
Break that number or that acronym down for me again. FMCS.
Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. And their whole purpose is to keep the public safe and the truck drivers safe.
Okay.
And we're not doing too great. But the administrator of the FMCSA has been a revolving door for I don't know how long. We haven't had someone to stay in for more than a few years and probably decades. Derek Bars was just appointed recently. He has reached out to me, wants to talk, which is good. Some of my
Yes.
friends in the industry have also been to Washington and talked to him. So I truly think he wants to fix some of this. But again, it's so much of a mess. I don't know where they're going to start.
All right. Let's just say a hypothetical really quick before we close this down. If you were given the keys to the kingdom and you could put together a task force to go after this stuff, how many people would you need, and could you do the job?
Yeah. I would need, if I could do like the fraud task force under the FMCSA, no more than 10 people. And as long as I had the authority there's a imminent hazard order that the FMCSA can give the trucking company. And then it's like, we're giving you 2 weeks. I don't know the number of days, but however long and then we're shutting you down. 10 people, the authority to issue those, and we could clean it up in less than a year.
That's a hell of a thing right there. And what's this guy's name? The FMCSA?
Derek Bars.
Derek Bars. If you happen to see this, I think that would be worth the investment. Okay.
He does see this stuff on X, so that's
okay.
A little encouraging.
That's a pretty confident statement by somebody who clearly knows what she's talking about. Let's make this happen, because, wow, we are not going to make it too much further down the road if this continues. It's bad. Danielle, you got anything else?
Well, my last thing.
Yes.
While the fraud doesn't directly touch like taxpayer money and I can't quantify it, I cannot put a financial total on someone losing their life because of an illegal trucker on the road. I also cannot put a financial number on the American men and women who have had to shut down their trucking companies that they've had for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And I cannot put a total on an American dad, brother, son who doesn't have a job anymore because he has been ran out of the industry by illegal truck drivers who run for very cheap rates.
There you go. And that's the reality of it. This costs people their lives, and we've got to fix it. All right, Danielle, thanks for coming on the show today. Really appreciate it. This has been incredibly insightful, and yeah, hope you guys learned something. See you next time.